Hello, humans and the environment. I have a few things to share today, but not much. I really want to let Octavia Butler's words speak for themselves. I found this great short piece describing her approach to prediction and writing. I've shared the first 4 chapters of the parable of the sower with you all. It's a very impactful work. Butler's often seen as a prophet. The sequel to Parable of the Sower, Parable of the Talents, features a leader whose slogan, who comes to power in the United States, and his slogan is "Make America Great Again." So, if that's not prophetic, she wrote she wrote Parable of the Sower in the '90s, and it takes place right around now in 2024. I think the book opens. So that's just a little bit of background info, but I wanted to emphasize some of the things she says about writing in this short article that I included with the opening chapters of that novel. So this first one, the one thing that I and my main characters never do when contemplating the future is give up hope. In fact, the very act of trying to look ahead to discern possibilities and offer warnings is in itself an act of hope. So pay attention as you read the novel to the future that she's describing, or it's a present in 2024 that she's describing. It's pretty dark and dreary, and she says in the same essay that this quote is from that she didn't really add anything new to how she's thinking of the future. She just looked at the problems we had then and gave them about 30 years to develop. So you could think about our current situation, what we've learned throughout the semester, and where we're headed, where we are now, and what of Octavia's predictions have become true. But despite how dreary and horrifying the time that she describes in the novel is, there's this thread of hope that that is present throughout the entire series. Lauren Olamina, the lead character, is developing her own religion, and so the verses of her religion open each chapter, and I want you to pay careful attention to those because they have this idea of God is change, that changes everything. It's ongoing, it's ever present, and what we can do as agents in this scary time is try to not stop change or control change, but try to help mold and shape change as it occurs, to sort of flow with the changes, but in a way that's intentionally shifting those changes in ways that we want, instead of just being God's playthings, like she writes in one of those opening verses of the chapters. So pay attention to that sort of dual theme, things winding together, this sort of dreary present, which is sort of the future of climate change and the Earth's problems that she's describing. So she's looking about 30 years into the future, but the future that she sees is now. So this novel was written about 30 years ago. So try to notice both of those threads moving through the dreariness and the horror of the reality that Lauren Olamina is living within, and then also her focus on change, on never accepting that anything is permanent. She's always ready for the walls of her town to fall down, and if you keep reading the novel beyond what I've assigned, you'll see what happens and how change comes to her and how she survives throughout the whole trilogy. But so keep in mind how bad things are, but also this focus that she has on change and on shaping the future, and on not just being like the result, the consequence of all these terrible big changes that are going underway, but being not in control, but an agent in an active role as we encounter these changes and shifting things that are coming our way. She says, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. This is the opening text of the first chapter of the book, and it's also, I read part of it is written on her tombstone, and her tombstone is in Altadena, California, where fires burned the whole neighborhood to the ground last year. So if you imagine Butler in this setting where, I mean, she's buried in an area that has undergone drastic change and has left a lot of uninhabitable space right near the areas where Butler grew up. So it's just kind of daunting or meaningful. I don't know. It's powerful to think about her in that space that's already been destroyed, and some of the prophecy that she foresaw coming to take shape right around where she grew up and is buried. So just some more information about Butler and change and how the world is being shaped. Where we stand determines what we're able to see. This is a big part of that short article. She talks about living in a state of grief and despair, and how that's only going to allow us to imagine futures filled with grief and despair. But if we can shift our perspective, there's more that becomes possible. This Butler's writing is part of a movement called Afrofuturism, which uses the Black experience, the African American experience, and history and culture to sort of create possibilities for the future, to use science fiction to envision alternative paths that we could be on. And so this text that I've asked you to read is steeped in that tradition and is really about imagining alternative futures. So again, in this short article, a few rules for predicting the future. She says, why make predictions? Because making predictions is one way to give warning when we see ourselves drifting in dangerous directions, because predictions is a useful way of pointing out safer, wiser courses. So I want you to take Butler's writing and use it as a model for thinking about the future, and keep in mind these two strands, these two themes within the parable of the sower, of sort of horrifying circumstances, terror, death, disease, destruction, fire, on the one hand, but on the other hand, sort of seeing through that and creating a vision. Lauren Olamina is crafting her own religion that's coming to her in these verses, and seeing that as opportunities for change and ways to sort of direct that change, shape the change, and be intentionally seeking to make those changes go in the way that we want them to go. Adapting with the changes, not trying to stop them or ignore them or pretend like they aren't happening, but accepting what's happening to us, and then also moving with the changes in a way that's beneficial and trying to make the best of our circumstances. So what just came to mind to me now is thinking of swimming in a rip current, a riptide, where the current is pulling you out away from the shore, and if you just fight against that, you're going to go under. But if you can go with that and still steer yourself through the current to safety, then you might survive. So maybe that's a useful metaphor for us to think about our situation and the challenges that confront us, and how to sort of maintain hope and keep alive what's possible, because we don't really know what's going to happen. Nothing's been settled yet. Some things have been settled, but a lot is still unsettled, and there's still a lot of different directions we could go. And by the end of our lives, our generation, your generation, the world's going to look a lot different, and there's a lot of good that we could move towards, and a lot of bad that we could avoid still by the choices that we're making today. So that's all I have to contribute, but I hope you'll read this text carefully and maybe want to finish the book. I know that's happened in some former classes where I've just assigned a part of it, but I hope you enjoy it and are moved in a good way by some of the warnings that Butler provides, but also some of her vision and her hope for making things better. Have a great week.